Hello and welcome to Hyper Creative Episode 4. I'm your host, Alex. And today, what we're going to do is we're going to find out what happens when you have one day to install a big group exhibition and the curators still aren't here. So follow me as the day continues.
No, that's fine. We'll try
Say that again.
I mean, like, the Whitewater Gallery's been downtown since the 70s, and we've never had a fire once.
All right.
Saying that like contemporary art is not about like a piece of work or a show. It's about living as a contemporary artist. And like once you start that, you essentially are now entering into being a contemporary artist as life. And whatever you make first may or may not be good. It might not be something you even like yourself or that the public likes, but it's just the starting point to like the rest of your life. So like as you go, each piece of work informs the next, and it just becomes like this larger story that you're telling of like how you as an artist are making work. So like if one piece of work is not doing what you want, then the next one will be informed by that. And it's that idea of like not everything you make is going to be winning awards, because if it was, like, how boring would that be?
That would be super boring.
It'd be super boring, unless you were making work that was awards themselves. Then I would expect it to win all the time.
You can just award yourself another award.
Yeah, if it doesn't win an award, I'll just keep the artwork myself, and that would be the award.
There you go.
This doesn't have to be.
This is the top one.
Is that evil or is it like that?
Like that.
Wow.
It's like looking down. It's like a grin.
So I can hold this above you.
That's true.
That's look about right?
A little to the right. Yeah, like that. About 2 times.
Or
Like not
whatever way you're gonna do it, just be consistent.
What's behind this wall?
Don't worry about that. It does, but you should both step back and see it.
Down.
So how much down?
Like that.
How's that?
I think that's.
What are you looking at? Yeah? Step back, take a look.
I think that looks pretty good. Do you think that's good?
Yeah? Okay.
I'm always worried though.
So, fear and perception, where did the title come from?
Well, there's a lot of things going on in the world right now in relation to, big arguments and division within groups and people that are really angry at each other. And one of the kind of core themes that we kind of realized is that there's a lot of perspectives and there's a lot of ways to look at things, and that a lot of division kind of sparks fear. So a lot of it deals with those core themes of sort of fear and perception, and then maybe a little bit of like using like the horror genre as a way of kind of telling that narrative and exploring that story. Yeah. So that's I mean, in a short version, that's how that name kind of came to be.
So in terms of that theme, now you can be serious or totally unserious with this answer, but in terms of fear and the arts, when were you the most afraid?
The most afraid
Yeah.
in the arts? Wow. That's a great question. There's been a lot of people think that the arts is like the softest place to work, that like it's safe. And I have never had to physically defend myself as much as working in the arts, especially advocacy work. Several years ago, I was at an arts conference And I won't get into which one, so I'm not really trying to get them in trouble or something. I don't think it was their fault. But we were at a hotel and we were having dinner, and some people at the hotel started like making like racist comments toward, like, just in general. And a bunch of people I was sitting with, it's funny how like they all look at you and they're kind of like, what are you going to do about it? Like, 'cause, you know, some people aren't going to do anything themselves, and I get that vibe. That happens. But you know, my kids were there and my partner was there, and you know, it was like it's only like 7 o'clock at night. It's not like it's a bar, but it's a restaurant. It's like we're in a hotel, so it's not really like, I didn't feel like this was like a bar fight scenario. It's just more like people are getting drunk early on a Friday and they're being idiots. So, you know, we started getting our coats and just getting ready to leave. I thought that was the best way of handling it. But you know, as I'm getting ready to get in my jacket, you know, they said some more things, like, and it, you know, it was just right there in my face. And I went right there because it was so close. And I said, you know, every time you're saying those things, you're hurting my feelings more and more. And they said, what things? And I said, the racist comments you keep making. And it wasn't even like I'm missing a beat. Like, I just got punched like immediately. Like, they didn't even get up to hit me. They just punched me, and there was 4 of them. And all of a sudden, you know, I'm fighting these 4 guys like in a family restaurant in the middle of the, you know, it's like 7 o'clock at night. It's like totally not even the middle of the night. And, you know, it gets broken up and 2 of them got charged. And, you know, I had like a bit of a black eye, and not, you know, it wasn't really too rough for worse for wear. And then the next day there was a panel discussion that I was on, and I started talking about sort of the way that the scene in Canada has encouraged these kind of like debates about certain things, and that allows people to think that, like, if you can debate it on the news, that it's okay to have the counterpoint opinion, and because that's like the news is debating it, so why can't I have that opinion? And I said that on the panel, and one of the people on the panel was crying while I said this, and you know, and it's at a time period where there's a lot of like white fragility in the arts, and people like saying things about racism could trigger people being really upset. And so, you know, I didn't think anything of it. And then I finished talking, and the next person gets up, the woman that was crying gets up, and she says that she was crying because in her country, 3 of her coworkers were protesting about civil rights and like the racial rights in that country, and the police executed them in public. So she had found out overnight that 3 of her coworkers are dead and that the police had killed them. That's why she was crying. So it was like a reality check to me that it's like, yeah, Canada sucks. It's crap. Racism's terrible. I just got punched in the face once. I get to go home with my kids. You know, it's not good what happened to me, but perspective. And that was probably when I realized like how scared I should be about all kinds of things in the world, you know?
In terms of that,
how lucky I am too.
Oh, yeah. In terms of that counterpoint perspective, there's something to be said, I suppose, for artist-run culture being that counterpoint at times.
Yeah.
What do you feel is artist-run culture necessary?
100%, absolutely. Like whether we're talking about the original like movement of the collectives back in the 70s and how they were, you know, the parallel galleries or the alternative art galleries, which a lot of people will always say, you know, alternative to what? What are they responding to, right? But the collective movement was always about supporting artists, by artists, doing the work together, elevating the practice, and then, you know, what is art other than an alternative form of communication, right? So making a message to communicate to who about what. I mean, for me, it's the general public, it's my family, it's my friends, it's, you know, the arts scene in general. You know, when you become an artist, it's part of life at that point. So whether you want to acknowledge everyone around you or not is...
So it's part of your identity.
It becomes part of your identity, whether you even really want it to or not, right? Because in the end,
I agree with that.
it lays claim to you, whether you lay claim to it. So that's the contemporary art world for you.
What does fear and perception mean to you?
Well, just generally nowadays, it seems like there is a lot of talk about fear, whether that's like financial worries or housing worries or, I don't know, just general societal worries. So it just seems like it's permeating everything and every discussion nowadays. And then perception is related to it because it's really about like how you relate to fear or relate to other things and how you perceive things. And then depending on that viewpoint, it can be positive or negative. So, yeah.
So in terms of your experience in the arts, I'll ask you this because I asked Clayton. What has happened to you in the arts that has made you fearful?
Oh, just seeing the current funding trends, where it's been so much harder to get grants just because every time you talk to an officer, like you try to get feedback on why something was rejected, they're like, oh, we had 2-3 times as many applicants in this pool and our funding hasn't been increased, so we can only give out so much. And as a small not-for-profit that relies on government funding, when you get told no, that's devastating. You have to like cut back your employment or you have to cut artists, and that's really hard. So I think that is definitely one of the fears right now is just how hard it is to get funding these days.
Absolutely. And what do you think the importance of artist-run culture is in today's society?
Oh, artist-run culture is super important. Like, this is where the ideas kind of get started. It's where people can try new things. They can get their first starts. It's about supporting artists at like key moments in their career. And the fact that it's artist run, it's like the people running things get it. They know what you're trying to do, they know what you're trying to say, and they can help you. Whereas when you have like a larger institution, they might not be willing to take risks because they're not artists themselves. They don't kind of understand the struggle. So I think, arts run culture is as important now as it's ever been.
Fear and perception was where we landed as sort of a thematic for many reasons. Not just the obvious horror movie festival, which is going to be opening here tomorrow night. So tomorrow there'll be a screen over there, there'll be chairs here, and the Bay of Blood, which is North Bay's horror movie festival for all kinds of independent horror, will have its 3rd year here. Isn't that great? Yeah. And with that kind of idea of like horror as a genre, we started to think as a group of like the idea of like conflict and division and fear and perception. And Fear and Perception sounded like a good title, so that's what happened. It's not necessarily referencing anything in particular. It's kind of more of the vibe that we're kind of dealing with, maybe in the arts, maybe in life, maybe in politics, maybe in worlds. I have no idea but I think it lands no matter who you are. That there's a lot of fear right now. There's a lot of various viewpoints. There's a lot of conflicting viewpoints, and considering we had this context of horror, we're like, well, these are good things to explore. So maybe I can pass it to Tara to just kind of briefly give a little bit of a high level of like what's in the space.
Yeah,
So I just want to acknowledge that Justin Logan is here. Justin and Clayton co-created an Atari game, so using software, and then we had to buy an old Atari to actually play it on, and find an old TV that would actually work with the Atari.
Yeah.
So they put together this game. It's called Arts Front Center Survival. And basically your character is trying to collect these pieces for the exhibition and not get caught by the mysterious hooded figure. So please, if you get a chance, play it. It's fun. It's hard.
It's very hard. It's very hard.
Trying to escape. I guess this way. So Clayton created these little mini cabins that you see around the room. Each cabin has a camera inside. And this cabin here shows what's on each of the cameras. So you can sort of see like an inside view of the cabins.
And I mean, so again, like the idea of, you know, perception, at first these were gonna just be installation elements, but then they became like a whole thing. But technically, this is just, what is it? It's just like a rear view camera setup for a
Like
semi
transport
truck. So it was like, I'm not a wizard at this stuff. It came this way, so I just took it apart and put it in the gallery. So.
Then moving over here, this is Jacob Solomon's work. Jacob Solomon is an emerging artist. He just graduated from the graphic design program at Canada, and he designed all of these eyes. And the idea behind it is that you can stand in the middle, and then all the eyes are kind of on you. And the piece is called Feast Your Eyes. So again, like working with like perception and a lot of people would be freaked out, so it kind of plays with the fear angle as well. My piece here, this is a bound object piece, and it just says, do you like what you see? And that can be interpreted any number of ways. So it could be like, do you like what you see? You know, are you happy with the image it's reflected? Are you happy with yourself? A lot of people feel uneasy around mirrors. I know I have before. So it's kind of plays with like a lot of different ideas. And then Claudia Torres created this lovely piece over here called Let Them See You. And I don't know if Claudia, if you want to speak about your work or anything?
Probably how like fear works when you have to create something. How you have so much creative stuff and creative people around you, and sometimes it's very overwhelming in a really good way, but when you have to kind of create or do your part in this artist world, you get very scared because it's literally a part of you that's coming out and just being there for people to judge and see, and how you don't have to let that fear and that perception of this world that it's so creative that you just consume. And so it's basically just letting all that creation come out from you, from your soul, and just stop that fear and let it just flow all out.
And then over here we have two video pieces by Peter Warren. Peter is a telephone artist from BC. And he can't be here, but he gives these video pieces to install. And the first one is a performance intervention that he did at the British Museum in London. And basically he sees all of these artifacts that are hidden behind glass, artifacts that were stolen from people all across the world. And what he's doing is trying to reconnect the pieces, more specifically the pieces from Canada, with their ancestors. So he's wiping down the glass with moose hide. I believe he also smears bear grease on the glass at one point. And the second piece is more of a personal piece. It deals with trying to find a way to heal Alzheimer's, because his mother currently has Alzheimer's and his family has a genetic predisposition to it. So the second video piece deals with that, and it shows objects being burned. Yeah, I'm not really sure what else to say about that one.
So there's a little bit of like, we did this connected installations piece where we just kind of, it's funny, the work that on Jacob Solomon's, this yarn, this was always the concept of how he wanted the work. He wanted it connected with the fabric, but he had never said that really. And then when he came and installed it, we had already purchased this fabric to do these kind of installation elements to just connect the space. So it was so strange to see how in tune we were with each other without intending it to be. And then he gave us the rest of his yarn to use as well. So we kind of carried it through, and it was a little bit collaborative. And like the different little didactic text points, like we didn't want to be overly prescriptive with what we were saying. We're like, again, we're not trying to have a commentary on a specific subject. We're just trying to prompt people to kind of respond to these bigger concepts of, fear and perception. But the one artist that we haven't talked about yet is the one that's been waiting over on the side to do a performance for us. Sid, would you like to do a performance? Yeah.
There was this little girl, and she floated down from the sky, and she hovered looking out way across the land, and she could hear this beautiful song from Peter Morin, just singing and singing and singing. She stretched out her arms and she floated throughout the community, and they filled her with freedom. They filled her with freedom and love. And these songs just showered down over her. And she floated, and she pranced, and she danced, and her eyes were so full. They were so full. And she floated, and she floated. And she was adorned with these beautiful flowers, these beautiful furs. And she ate this little partridge. She ate its breast. And the partridge asked her, "Can you dance for me? Can you dance for me? Because when you dance for me, we'll be dancing together." So Sid, she was vibrating. She was vibrating with all the love they poured into her. She was vibrating with all the love they poured into her. And when it was all finished, she went home, and her family was tired, and they all just went to bed. But she was still vibrating. She was full of life. But not the old woman. The old woman, her heart was empty. Her heart was so empty. And she was standing at the shore, and she was looking out, and she could see way off in the distance. And she sang, "Wee-oh-ho, oh-wee-oh, wee-oh-ho, oh-wee-oh, wee-oh-ho, oh-wee-oh-ho." Every night when the moon was full, she would sing, but it always remained way off in the distance. Wee-oh-ho, oh, wee-oh, wee-oh-ho, I'm so alone. She stood there by herself. And she was so alone. but not the little girl. She was surrounded by stories, and she was surrounded by freedom. She was surrounded by love and songs. She could still hear Peter Morin. She could still hear him. And she looked out the window, and she saw this light, this beautiful light just coming through the window. And she peeked outside, and she could see that the grass was glistening. She could see the trees blowing in the wind. So she opened the door, and she stepped outside with her full heart. But that old woman, I'm so I can't have children, but I can have children. I can't have children, but I can have children. And the little girl, she tiptoed out, looking at all the things glistening under the moon. They were so bright and shiny. The flowers and the songs, they just danced among the flowers. And the dreams, they just wound around the trees. And the freedom was just full, like the moon. She was so full of life, but the old woman's heart was empty. And the little girl stepped in something sticky. She stepped in something sticky. And she tried to move, and she looked down, and she saw all these stories just wrapping around her legs. All these stories wrapping around her legs. And then these big hands picked her up. And these big hands began to chop vegetables, little slices of partridge, a little bit of Netflix, a little bit of freedom, and they threw it into this pot with the little girl. Ooh, she could smell the love on this little girl. She could smell the loving hands of her parents. It was filling the room. It was filling the room. And she just sucked that tender meat off those bones. I can't have children, but I can have children. She could taste the freedom inside her belly. She could taste all the fullness of those songs, all of those things that were drifting way, way, way off in the water. She could feel them in her belly. And she was vibrating. And she was vibrating. But as she looked around, she noticed the little girl was gone. The little girl was gone. And now she's all alone again. She's all alone. And she sang for the little girl to come back. But not even a bird would come up. Not even Peter Morin's song could be heard. The taste of freedom was gone. And she looked around, and she was all alone again, by herself. No family, no songs. She was all alone. Do you know where your freedom is? Do you know where your songs are? Do you know where your children are? I'm so alone. I'm so alone. I'm so alone. But no matter how hard she cried, or how hard she sang, at the shoreline, out to the full moon, month after month and season after season. Everything just kept floating off in a distance in the water, just floating off in a distance. Nothing in return. Thank you. So that's like a story, like a small story from my area that goes right from the Salish seas around Vancouver. My mom is part of her is from Salate-Watuth, which is people of the inlet. Me, Miracle Bun, and then the other half of her comes from Alberta, from Lac La Biche area, and then stretches further across the pond to the Basque people. And my dad's from the Fraser River, the Stalo, people of the river, and yeah! And I love that story of cannibalism. And I just got to think a little bit about what loneliness is, and so thinking about the loneliness of being separated from our items of love that we get bestowed upon by our ancestors, our blankets and our things, and so what happens when you strip all that love away. And so I would imagine that it's like that's what leads to cannibalism is the lack of all these things that shore up humanity and give life. And so I was thinking of my granddaughter who's we're preparing for her welcoming baby ceremony, and Perry was saying, and Lori, that we have these to shore up ourselves to get ready for the ride of life, which is like that, eh? Mm-hmm. It's like that. And then if you don't have that, and if you don't have people, that's what I imagine. So thank you guys for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Hyper Creative, focused on exhibit Fear and Perception, which is running here at Whitewater Gallery at 159 Main Street East, North Bay, until July 5th. Now, if you're familiar with our Hyper Creative episodes, you'll know this is when I'll step in at the end to bring a little levity to the proceedings, wrap things up, and I could tell you stories of fear, like gallery floods through the ceiling, or trying to move precariously tied on canoes in the name of fundraising, or finding a performance artist wandering the street about an hour before the performance, so stoned they could no longer identify gallery staff, or anyone else for that matter. But in solidarity with our curators and with the theme, Fear and Perception, I think it's important to say that both fear and the perception of it have never been more important in the arts and in artist-run culture, which is why I want to thank you for being here to support risk and innovation in the arts. It's never been more important, and it's because of supporters like you that innovative and risky and experimental shows just like this one can go on here at the Whitewater Gallery. So thank you for that, and we'll see you in the next episode.